Hi, good morning, it's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. Guys, we're going to split this video into two. We're going to be talking about what is taking place right now, second of all in the video, but first of all, what is taking place at the moment and is likely to take place maybe within the next 5 years. So without any ado, let's hit the road running. And first of all, let's begin by thanking our patrons and those people that are supporting us. Now, I've got to say this, guys. This current climate is definitely taking its toll on the level of funds that we're raising. And it isn't a surprise, especially in the later half of this video, you'll understand why that is. It is to do with the current climate on this pandemic and what is going on with that. I think you'll agree with me. I'm probably not too far off the beaten track with my conclusions on that, which I'll share with you later on in this video. But if you hadn't been onto the website yesterday, as always on a Wednesday, we had the At a Glance Earth's Health, and that was uploaded yesterday. You can have a look there. I just wanted to say again, the reason why we know how many parts per million of CO2 there is because we've got the equipment that measures that. The atmospheric oxygen. We got the Luminox sensor, which I built and programmed. That tells us accurately how much atmospheric oxygen there is. Because over the years, people have been concerned about these things like CO2. Is it as bad as what the governments make? Well, if you just have a look at this CO2 over the time we've been doing this, you'll see that it fluctuates between 400 and sometimes nearly 450 parts per million, but it's nothing to worry about. That level, we could raise it 1,000 parts per million. The only thing that's going to benefit is the vegetation on this planet is going to have more food than it usually does, and therefore it will thrive. Commercial greenhouses add extra CO2 in order to get better yields of products out of them. So we haven't got a problem with CO2. In fact, if CO2 was to drop any lower than what it is right now, we would start to see the biodiversities of vegetation on our planet shut down. And if it dropped below a certain amount, let's say 300 parts per million, we would be in big trouble. Because once the vegetation's gone, all those biodiversities of species would go, and we would not be any too dissimilar. We would go also. The atmospheric oxygen is a massive reservoir in our atmosphere, and 21.22% is a large quantity of oxygen, but it does fluctuate a little bit. If you have a look over the history of what we've been doing here, Earth Health at a Glance, you'll see it does fluctuate marginally, but nothing significant enough for us to worry about. 22% of the volume of our atmosphere is oxygen. It's the second largest abundant atmospheric gas in our atmosphere, apart from nitrogen. So we've got nothing to really worry about that. It would take something really dramatic for that volume and stock of oxygen in our atmosphere to really decay. We've got the TriMag system, which gives us an accurate reading of where the magnetic North Pole is every month, and within a couple of days we'll be adding the TriMag to the TriMag data page on the website at Pole Shift News. Another piece of equipment we've got is a Geiger counter here. We take a reading of the background count, just out of curiosity more than anything else. If we are getting more cosmic rays creep in, then we're going to start to see the background radiation creep up. And this is something that you could do at home if you wanted to. You could also buy yourself a CO2 meter, but I think with a lot of you'd rather just come to an honest source like the maverickstar Observatory and rely on us to get that data to you on these anomalies that are taking place and on the levels of gases in our atmosphere, especially the ones that hit the mainstream media like CO2. So another one, we keep a close eye on the volcanoes in eruption. The reason for that is because 1/3 of the volcanoes that usually erupted over 2 years ago are no longer in eruption. It used to be in the 30s, now it's down to the 20s. That's 1/3 of the erupting volcanoes that have disappeared. And we see from week in, week out, that number only fluctuating marginally between 20, 21, 22. That's it. Whereas, you know, a couple of years ago, it was in the 30s. I've showed you the map that I took stills from back then, and you can see the difference. You know, we throw up within the last 24 hours on a Wednesday the largest earthquake recorded. You can see there's a 5.0 in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Mid-Indian Ridge. And the other unique thing that we do here is record the muon levels, which are by particles of, you know, crashed other particles, bigger particles up in the upper atmosphere. When cosmic rays come through and collide with our upper atmosphere, they hit various amounts of molecules that are in the atmosphere, and as a result of that, we get muon showers. And if muons and cosmic rays are on the increase, then muons are going to be on the increase, and we're going to be recording that with our own equipment. Again, I don't know any other observatory that has a live muon recording for the public, but we certainly do here. So the point is this: you know, over the last week we've raised £27 for the observatory, and yet, you know, it doesn't really cover an hour's work, does it, that we do? And yet we cover, probably we put in many hours of work here at the observatory, and we've tried our best to give you an archive of what's going on and keep you up to date with one of the rarest anomalies that's taking place. You know, there's more than one reason that there's a selection of data here that we're looking at. And, you know, we also have equipment in Hong Kong, Canada, the Gold Coast of Australia, Perth, Australia, Tucson, Arizona, and we're going to be adding more and more equipment as time goes on and we get closer to this event of the magnetic pole reversal. And we'll find out and relay that back to you of whether that's going to be, you know, a excursion where it temporarily reverses. Now, I don't think that is the case. In fact, you asked me to give you a percentage of what I think that'll be the case. It'll be an excursion this time. I'd say it's not. We're probably 90% or 95% going into a major reversal or losing the magnetosphere at the least. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at the volcano activity dropping off, and the fact that it took another 500,000 years to go through a completed reversal, and we're in that process right now, have been since the 1900s. Over the recent few decades, we've seen the pole migration picking up speed as it covers more distance in less time. And, you know, with that we have other implications. If the volcanoes are dropping off, and that delay of 500,000 years since the last reversal, as opposed to the average reversal time of about 350,000 years, is looking like, you know, more to it, then that more to it is going to be solidification of our core and us ending up like possibly Mars, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, a very serious threat that we possibly face, and we really do possibly face that as a result of the volcanoes activity dropping off and us entering a new magnetic pole reversal, or already witnessing 20% reduction in the Earth's magnetosphere that protects us. And that comes at a time of us also going through another rare period, which is to do with the Sun, and that is, as we've pointed out before, the grand solar minimum. And both of these, grand solar minimum and the magnetic reversal, spell about the same problem: more cosmic rays coming through our solar system and more coming through our atmosphere. So, you know, we do face some very critical times, and as a result of that we could see dramatic climate changes, more than what we've seen already, and in turn at a time where we need to increase probably the food production around the world, we are sadly seeing a reduction due to good arable cropping land going simply offline through all the modern problems that we face and uncertainties in the seasons and the predictability of those seasons. And this is something that has been the end of many of our civilizations. If you do a little bit of research, you will see that, You know, one of the things that changed, that made it no longer viable for cities to survive, like the Mayans, the Egyptians, etc., the Incas, was dramatic climate changes. And we are back here facing one of those again. And, you know, it will do the exact same thing, because we have not learned any lessons, it seems. And we have definitely not took heed of the recorded information that we've had left by us from our ancestors. And that doesn't mean just what was put in biblical texts to last the test of time. It was what was written down in stone that lasted also the test of time, that we have completely and blatantly ignored over these recent modern years that we've experienced. And because of that, we are going to really go through it hard. Now, I'm going to leave that there, guys. You know what we do at the observatory, and I think it's worth more than £27 worth of funding in 7 days. You know, I really hope we can do something about this. And, you know, even though we are in this climate with this pandemic, or at least facing the policies of this common cold badged up as something much more worse than that, you know, I would hope that, you know, you do realise the importance of what we do at the observatory, and, you know, relaying that information back on this anomaly to you. So with that, we'll leave it at this section here. You know, we'll pick up on the pole shift and all the other things that we talk about tomorrow. But here, secondly, in this part of the video, the second part of this video, I think it's important for us to realise what we are actually facing today and how serious that is. So let's get in with it. So I think you've guessed what's coming up in the second half of this video, and it's to do with the stock markets. And it is my belief, and a few others who form part of our little think tank here in the UK, that the stock markets collapsed not an hour ago, not yesterday, or even midway through this year, but actually in 2019. And that is going on what was taking place around the world globally. You know, things like 1 million people in India being who was part of the automotive industry just being, you know, losing their jobs overnight. Germany, same thing. You know, countries all around the world artificially propping up the markets with fiat printed currencies. And, you know, although the markets, if you look at them today, will show a pretty little picture, the truth of the reality is it is over. And the only reason they are propping up the markets right now to make them look plump and healthy and active is to stop the simpleton or the idiot that doesn't know any better from finding out about it, because if he did, then the people would know, and then there would be panic on their hands. So, you know, if people were a little bit more proactive in going through and following what was going on economically globally, they would be more aware of what's taking place around the world and would know that the stock markets have already collapsed, and even more so with the policies that the governments around the world have implemented this year with regards to the pandemic. What you haven't noticed, that nobody is using aircraft, that, you know, even the aircraft engine manufacturers, Rolls-Royce, aren't building too much in terms of engines right now, laying off staff. You know, most of the aircraft around the world are grounded on runways still, and most of the corridors around the world are still inaccessible, let's say that. And we're just talking about one industry there. You can talk about all the industries across the range, especially entertainment, pubs, restaurants, theatres, you name it, all going bump at this moment. And that is, you know, also those people that work for these companies' jobs going. And it will be also those people's houses going. Because what we've seen throughout this year is just people dipping into what savings they've had, what credit they've had available to them, and that is the only thing that has kept them going. If you're self-employed here in the UK, you've been clobbered already, I know it, and if you're self-employed around the world, it's likewise for you. and it ain't going to get any easier. I was telling people, not giving them advice, I was just saying, if it was me and I was in a lot of people's situations where things weren't at the moment looking like they were going to get better, then they're probably better for you to just pull out right now, as opposed to hang on for things to get better, because they simply are not going to get any better. And I'm sorry that I can't be pessimistic about what is taking place, because it is obvious that something very, very terrible is about to happen, and if ever, and they've got to at some point announce it, when they do, things are going to get very ugly very quick. We're already being prepared here in the UK, I think, with the government now moving the army onto the streets as a familiar sight. You've got to think about why that is the case. You know, they're saying at the moment it's just to help with logistics, getting things moved round. You know, it's not a security issue, it's more of we've got the forces that can help, you know, in the field at this particular point in time, and why not use them? It's not. It's to get you used to seeing the military on the streets. Look what's going on with the freedoms of human rights. Look at the freedoms of information being taken away by Google and its associates across all mainstream media right now, and the local mainstream media just regurgitating what their narrative is and what they've been told to talk about. It's nonsense. It's not the real story. What's happening right now is a global reset. We're facing probably one of the greatest global depressions ever witnessed in human time. I guarantee you that. If you think right now everything is going to continue as normal, it's not. The policies have been in place for almost 12 months now. The freedoms most people have got used to going without. Being told who they can have in their household, when they can go and worship their religion, and, you know, without being told that you've been suppressed and the information that you're putting out just being suppressed. They talk about democracy, they talk about dictators, and yet look at how they behave, look at how they act themselves. It's appalling. And what can you do? Absolutely nothing on your own. And it's not even worth trying to be the hero, because it will just get you locked up first, or your family persecuted first. It's not even worth it. Things are got to get a lot worse before they get a lot better. And we are going to definitely witness things getting worse. You think the freedoms that you've lost already to date this year through the policies of global governments is a bad thing, then I can just tell you now, like everything else we talk about here on this channel, we haven't reached equilibrium yet, because things haven't started to get better. Clearly, I think you'll agree. So we know there is more worse things to come as time goes on. Whether they're trying to achieve a criteria to turn around to the debtors that they've sold the bonds to is another matter. I'm just talking about what is taking place right now with people in your streets, in your towns, in your cities. It just seems obvious that it cannot continue the way it's going. And it won't. So I wish there was a second part of this video which is more optimistic, but unfortunately, guys, the truth is, I can't see this recovering, and anything that we used to believe was the norm and experienced like in previous years coming back to that way. Guys, if you're interested in supporting the observatory, there's a link down there, and you know, try and make the most of it while you can. As always, bye for now.